Hey, what's going on, y'all? Jay from JS Films. In this video, I'm going to be doing an introduction to Unreal Editor for Fortnite. Now grab some popcorn and some pop, because this is going to be a long one. So what you're going to need to do first is actually install the Epic Games Launcher, and as you can see right here, I already have it opened. And to download the Unreal Editor for Fortnite, you just have to go to Store and search right here, Unreal Editor. Okay? It's going to be the first one. And you can just go ahead and download this. But as you can see right here, it's already in my library. So I can just click on that. And in my library, you're going to find two things. I have the Fortnite installed already. And additionally, I have the editor or Creative 2.0. Now, if you're not seeing this window right here, go back to your Unreal Engine, go to settings, and just make sure that hide game library is not checked. All right, so we'll go back here. And next, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and launch Creative 2.0 or Unreal Editor for Fortnite. Okay, so we are now in the Unreal Engine editor. So what we're going to do next is just talk about the UI a little bit, all right? So on the top left corner, you're going to see the usual menu options. You have File, Edit, Window, Tools, Verse, Build, Select, and Help. In the File, you're going to see the New Level, Open Level, Recent Level, Save, and Close, the usual stuff that goes in the file. In the Edit, you're going to see your editor preferences if you need to change anything. But honestly, if you're a beginner, you shouldn't really be changing a lot of stuff in here. So let's go ahead and close that. In the window, you're going to find we have a couple of options. We have Cinematics, which lets you create a sequencer. We have the content browser in here. We can open it up and you're going to see it down here. It's pretty important. Additionally, I can close this and then just go Control Spacebar. That's going to open up the content browser as well. Let's go ahead and dock this here because I actually like my content browser dock, so it just doesn't go away. It stays right there. Now going back to the Windows panel, we have the outliner, which is actually right here. We'll talk about it in a second. You have an option to open up more viewports if you want to. We have the place actors right here, which I actually call the plus box. You'll see why here in a second. We have the world settings. You can enable this, and that's going to open up some more settings for you right here on the right corner. And then we'll go to Windows again. We have the output log, which will show you some error messages that you're going to have. As you can see, we don't have any red messages in there, so we're good to go for now. So I'll close that. Again, I'm going to go back in here. We have the Fab Alpha, which is actually pretty new. This is really exciting stuff. Additionally, if you want to reset your layout, you can go to the load layout. You can use the default editor layout, and some people prefer the UE4 classic layout. You can change that to that as well. So this is UE5, and this is going to be the UE4. You can save layout, you can remove layout, and you can enable full screen for your editor, which is pretty self-explanatory. Now let's go to our tools. I can click on this, and this is going to show you your actual project size, which honestly, we don't have anything in here. So we didn't upload or anything yet, so I'll close that. Additionally, in the tools panel, there is a very, very handy tool called statistics. If I click on this, this is going to show you everything that we have in our scene or in our editor. And this is going to tell us how many triangles we have in this scene. As you can see right now, we have about 22,000 triangles in our scene, which is pretty cool. That's pretty low. You know, this is very important because when you're optimizing for your game or any cinematic, you're gonna wanna watch this number right here because it could potentially crash your computer if you don't pay attention to this right here. All right, so let's go ahead and close that. And let's see if I missed anything in the tools. I don't have any. I'm not going to mess around with the change revision control settings for now. Everything should be by default. This is good. I'm just going to close this. And in the verse, this is kind of like the blueprint for Unreal Editor for Fortnite. So again, I'm not going to mess around with this too much because for this introduction, we don't really need to mess around with blueprints or anything like that. Additionally, you have your build window here. Whenever you're building landscapes or grass, you can go ahead and click that, but for now, it's pretty empty. Next to that, we have the selection window. Again, Control A, select all, escape. I mean, these are all pretty much standard across the board. You can also select all the lights if you want to. I don't think I have any lights in here at all except for the sky, which is actually the cloud actor right here. So we don't have any actual local lights, so that's not really going to work. Next, we have the help button. You can check out the documentation for this. You can check out what version you're in, which is actually Unreal Engine 5.1.1. So pretty much this is a small baby version of the Unreal Engine 5.1. So next, what we're going to go over is just right below the menu, we have the toolbars. This is going to save your project. You can do this or Control S if you want to. Next to that, you're going to see we have our modes. We have selection, landscape, modeling, and animation. Again, I'm going to cover some of these much more in detail later on. Next to that, we're going to have a project settings. Again, this is pretty similar to the file. You can open a new project. You can check your project settings right here if you want. You can change the languages, you can change the title of it. Again, we have upload test code, publish project whenever you're ready to go, or you can open your project in the portal. Again, we're not going to do that just yet because we didn't really make anything yet. But right next to that is what I call the plus box in all of my courses, but the actual official name for it is the place actor. So I'll click the drop down. You're going to see the Fab again is in there. You're going to be able to create some basic point light in here and actor. Additionally, if you go below that, you're going to see we have more options for lights. We have directional light, point light, spotlight, rec light, skylight. And again, shameless plug, I just released an introduction to Unreal Engine 5 lighting course, which goes over a lot more detail as far as lighting in Unreal Engine. So go ahead and check it out because it's pretty darn useful. So that being said, right below that, again, we have the cinematic. We can create a camera actor in here, or we can create a camera shake source actor. Now, and then below that, you can create some cubes, spheres, cylinder, cone, plane, but we're going to have a lot more of these later in the actual modeling tools. Below there, you're going to see your post-process volume. We have a sky atmosphere, exponential height fog, decal actor. Again, I covered these in my recent Unreal Engine 5 lighting course, man. Go ahead and check it out. And then right below that, we're going to have a blocking volume, which is very useful. If you don't want players to go through things, you're definitely going to want to be using a blocking volume. Now, if you want your place actor panel to be an actual window, you can click on this, and that's going to open that up instead of just having this little tiny drop down right here. All right. So moving to the right, we have the verse, open the current project and VS Code, Virtual Studio Code. I'm not going to do that right now. And additionally, right here is going to be how you launch your session. Now, what's cool about this is actually connected directly to Fortnite. If I click this session, it's going to automatically open a session of Fortnite. And actually, I can play this level in Fortnite, which is, again, super cool. And I'm going to go cancel this autosave for now. We don't need it. And to the right of that, you're going to see some session options, live edit and auto start game. For live edit, pretty much if you're working in the editor and you wanted to automatically upload and make changes to your Fortnite instance or your game, that's going to go ahead and do that for you. I have launch on this PC right now, so this is going to open another exe file whenever I launch Fortnite. It's not going to connect to any platform or anything like that. Okay. Now, moving on all the way to the right, we have our Teams window. I am not connected to any sessions, but in theory, you are going to be able to invite people in here, and people can actually work on the same instance in Unreal Engine Editor, which is pretty cool. So one of you can be creating landscapes and somebody else can be creating, props or something like that. So it's pretty cool. You can actually collaborate with people in creating your levels, which is amazing. Next to that is going to be your settings, all right? So I'll click on this right now. The probably most important option here is going to be your engine scalability settings. Whenever you're playing a video game and you're changing the graphic settings, you're actually changing the engine scalability settings in Fortnite. So I'm going to go down right here, and now you're going to see pretty much some familiar settings in here. We have resolution scale, anti-aliasing, post-processing, shadows, global illumination, reflections, textures, effects, foliage, shading. Now, your hardware will dictate where this slider is going to be. So if you have a really old system, you might have to work in medium. All right, so that just really depends on your computer right here. So right below that, we have the preview rendering level. Now I have this set to SM6, which is actually the default because you are going to need SM6 with some functions, new functions in Unreal Engine 5. So just leave that by default. And I guess what I'll do is I'll move on to our viewport right here. This is our viewport, okay? So I'm going to click on this top left corner right now. One of the options that I suggest you turn on in here is show your FPS. So you can Control Shift H. What that's going to do is show your FPS at the top right corner of your editor. As you can see, we're running about 103 frames per second right now. So that's running pretty well, even in epic settings. So that's good. Not worried about it. If I go back in here, you're going to be able to turn off the toolbar if you don't want to see that, but I want to leave that on. You can change your screen percentage, which actually this is the quality of your editor in here. So if I go to 100, it's going to get a lot crisper, but obviously I'm going to lose some FPS. So change this to, again, 67, I believe is the default. And then you'll automatically notice that we're back up to 100 frames per second. All right, another useful thing in here is the layout. Sometimes whenever I'm working in Unreal, I actually use 2 panes instead of 1 pane. So I have one right here. I'll change the left one to say perspective. Sometimes whenever I have cameras in here, I would have it set to the camera, and then I'll be moving stuff here so I can make changes and see what the camera is seeing at the same time. So I'll go back in here, just go back to 1 pane, that's okay. And let's go ahead and bring back our actual frames per second so we can see it again. All right, next to that is going to be your viewport view. So right now we are set in perspective. I can go to top, bottom, left, right, front, and back. Let's go back to perspective. Additionally, if you have a camera, you can go to the cinematic viewport, but right now we don't really have one in there, so it's just kind of the same exact thing. All right, so next to perspective is your view mode. Right now we're viewing our scene in lit mode, but you can go unlit. Now, one of the reasons why I go unlit sometimes is whenever I need some more frames per second. Usually this helps a lot. So if I go again to show FPS, well, we can see that I'm pretty much maxed out. Now, we do have a lot more view modes in here if you want to check everything out in wireframe or something like that, but you can play around with these a little bit more. Additionally, we have some nanite visualization in here, pretty useful, especially lumen as well whenever you start lighting. Again, go check out my course. So next to that is our show flags. You're going to see we have common flags. Flags are pretty much items. So if you don't want decals to start showing up in your scene, you can turn that off. If you don't want fog to show up in your scene, you can turn that off. And as you can see, it turned off our fog on the clouds right there and on the horizon. Now you can mess around with this if you want to, but honestly, I just leave this by default. It doesn't really bother me too much. Additionally, if you want to turn on off some post-processing things like bloom or depth of field or grain or anything, motion blur, you can turn that off in here as well. So next thing is a new feature. We actually don't have this in the Unreal Engine editor, the actual Unreal Engine. This is the time of day slider, which is actually pretty darn cool. With just a slide to the left and slide to the right, they're actually animating the time of day, which is pretty cool. Now, obviously 0, 1, it's on 24 hours, so 24 would be like midnight. This is such a cool slider. I actually wish they would kind of bring this to the real Unreal Engine editor. All right, moving on to the right of that, we have the project size. It's question mark because we didn't really do anything yet. On the right of that, we have the select, transform, rotation, scale, pretty much your usual. You can use the shortcuts in here. You can do Q, W, E, R right here. Additionally, on the right of that, you're going to be able to cycle your transform gizmo from world to local. So you can see that this is world and this is local. And on to the right of that, you can control how your objects kind of snap. I usually turn off my snapping, and then on to the right of that, this is going to let you increase or decrease your snap sizes. Again, I turn off all my snaps. I just don't like snapping, all right? I rather move my objects in free form. And to the right of that, you're going to see your camera speed. Right now, we're set to 4. You can decrease it or increase it if you want. So 4 is good. That means that if I right-click, hold my mouse right-click button, and WASD around, I'm actually moving the camera. Now, additionally, if you have a scroll on your mouse, you can decrease the mouse speed by scrolling down. You can increase that mouse speed by scrolling up. So that's pretty cool. All right, so on the right of that, you're going to see some frame guides. We have rule of third. If you're familiar with photography, videography, there goes your rule of third. Additionally, you have a crosshair that you can mess around with in there. You can also letterbox something. If you want a 2.35 anamorphic, you can use that as well. And finally, on the right of that is going to be your outliner. Your outliner is going to show you everything in your level. I can actually click in the editor, and that's going to select the item that I'm clicking on in my level. So this is very useful. Whenever you have a huge map, you can just search in here, say player, and that's going to show you your players right here. We have player 1 and player 2. Additionally, if it's still ginormous and you want to filter things, you can click on the left side and just filter them out just like so right here. And you can also decrease and increase the sizes in this window, which is pretty cool. You can scale them up and down depending on your monitor, of course. Right below that, we have the details in the world settings that we actually enabled from the window. Let's go through the details real quick. Now, the details panel, you're going to be in here quite a bit because every single thing that you click or use in your project, you're going to have details for. This is going to give you more information about this object right here. We can actually transform this. We can move it left and right. It is a little bit laggy, so I'm going to Control Z that. To undo it, you can change the rotation right here by the numbers if you want. If you're very precise, you can do that in as well. And depending on the item you have, that you might actually have more options. Like in this one, it actually lets you change the theme right here, and you can actually hide it from the game if you want to. Again, this is going to get a little bit more detailed, but whenever you click something, that's going to open up the details for that object that you have selected. Okay, so here we are in our content browser. In the content browser on the left side, you're going to see we have about 3 folders. We have the intro course folder, which is our local folder right now, what we're working on. And then right below that is the Fortnite folder. Now this right here is pretty much the heart of the Unreal editor, because Epic Games spent a lot of time making everything easy to understand, simplifying things, watering everything down. I'm going to talk about these a little bit more later in other tutorials, but this right here, big thanks to Epic for making this possible right here. Right below that, we have a Epic folder. We just have some materials in there and some textures. You're going to see some ground textures, pretty much some pre-made textures. I can just drag and drop it in the scene, and that's going to change that. I'll go ahead and Control Z that to undo it. All right, so let's go move up to that. I can click on this plus add button. This is going to let us import into our project. Again, it's going to give you access to Fab. It's going to let you create a new folder or create a new blueprint class, create a new level, new material, Niagara system. Additionally, again, you can just right click in the content browser and you're going to get the same exact thing. So there it is. You have a save all in here as well. Whenever I'm working in Unreal, I actually do save all, because sometimes when you click save, it doesn't actually save the entire thing. So it's a pretty good idea to go ahead and save all. All right, so that's pretty much it for the UI. So what I'm going to cover next are the different modes we have in Unreal Editor for Fortnite. So I'm going to go back to my top left corner, and I'm going to change this from selection to landscape. Now, what this is going to do is show you, now again, I'm just moving using my right mouse button in WASD. It's going to show you an outline on how big this landscape is going to be. Now, you can change the number of components if you want. So right now we have an 8x8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 across and 8 down. So for this video, I'm just going to say 2x2. So it is a little bit smaller. And next, we have a material window right here. Now, I'm just going to set it to landscape. I'm going to type in landscape. Again, Fortnite editor came with some pretty darn cool landscapes. I'm going to select this right now. I'm going to see creative landscape. This is going to be available for you by default. And what I'll do is I'll just create this landscape now. That's going to automatically create a ground for us with some grass. Okay, so I'm going to go to my selection mode or shift 1. And I'm just going to delete the grid planes because we're actually not going to be using that. We're going to be using our landscape here. As you can see, that's pretty darn nice. And let's go back to our landscape or shift 2 because I'm going to go over some settings here that you can change around. Starting with the sculpt tool. Once you have a landscape created, you can actually go ahead and sculpt this landscape if you want it to be a little bit bumpier, hilly, right? Additionally, if you want to smoothen that out, you can do that as well. This is really where the fun begins. Now, what's cool about that landscape that we applied here, the pre-made one, it's actually reactive to whatever changes you're doing, which is pretty darn cool. Again, Epic Games spent a lot of time setting all this up, so it's just gonna be pretty much drag and drop and plug and play. So man, the team that worked on this, they did an amazing, incredible job. So that's that. And there's another cool tool in here called erosion. What this is going to do is actually sink in your level. Look at that. It's pretty cool. Gives you a little bit more of just texture to your landscape. And just like that, we created this grass field that looks pretty darn cool. I mean, you can increase or decrease your tool strength. Sometimes it is a little bit too much. But you just have to play around with these settings. And additionally, you can change the brush size right here, kind of like in Photoshop, and the brush fall off. If you want it to 0, it's just going to be really harsh. But if you wanted to fade in, you can go and change that, and it's going to fade just right in. It's perfect. Now, if we move on to the paint, again, this is already set up beautifully with this landscape material that they have. So what this is going to do is we have layer 1 selected and go to layer 1 and start painting hard. You're going to see that this is actually some rock textures, which is pretty cool. If I go to layer 2, that also includes a different type of texture. This is more like your arid kind of desert, right? And then the layer 3, we have this, I don't know, rocky-ish area. You actually see pieces of rocks in there, which is kind of cool. Right there in layer 4, we have something else in there. This is more like just rocks, looks like. And then the 5th one, this is actually dirt. So you can see right there. And then the 6th one is going to be rocks. Look at that. That's pretty darn cool. And obviously, you're not going to have a landscape that looks like that. You're going to have to blend stuff in so that they all look good together. Again, this is already set up, which is super darn cool for y'all. So I will just Control Z everything so we're back to the grass so it doesn't look ridiculous, right? Okay, so that is the intro to landscape tool. And what we'll do next is we'll go to the modeling tool. Now, remember I said earlier, you have a lot more options in here as far as creating shapes, because we have modeling tools. So we can create, let's say here, a sphere. So I'll click on a sphere right here. I'll click that and I'm just gonna say accept. That's now gonna create a sphere for us. So you can see we can move it up and down. You can see the gizmo right now, right here. If you want to move it to the right, click on the red one. I can actually go around. We have the green one as well. That's going to move it to the 3D space. So now the shortcuts again are W for transform, E for rotate, and we have R for scale, just like so. Additionally, if you just hold it in the middle, that's going to scale it uniformly like that. You can see it's a little bit tilted, so I can zero all these out, the rotations. So 0, 0, 0. Now it's upright, looks a lot better. Now you can create a lot of donuts in here. You can create a lot of shapes in here if you want to. All right, so look at that, donuts. And to be honest, the Unreal Engine modeling tool is really starting to grow. It's pretty cool what you can create in here. We have a lot more options now in here, which is pretty exciting stuff. So I will delete that for now. So that is your modeling tool right here. Play around with that a little bit more if you want. Well, the animation tool, I'm not really going to mess around with too much because I'm not going to focus. This is a whole new set of tutorial when it comes to animation. So I'm just going to leave it like that. But if you want to play around with it, you can. All right. So let's go back to this selection. Okay. So what I'm going to cover next is how you can create a material. As you can see here, our ball is not looking really good. We have that grid material in there. So we don't want that. So we're going to go to our intro course right here. We're going to right click in the content browser and we're going to create a new material. And I'm just going to title this ball mat, ball material. You can name it whatever you want. And I will double click that. All right. What that's going to do is open up the Unreal Engine material graph editor. So what we'll do is actually just create a simple color material for this. Now what I'm going to do is show you how I can quickly create a color for this ball real quick. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to type in vector space 3 and that's going to create a constant vector. I'm now going to click this and drag and drop that to base color. And what that's pretty much saying that I want the base color or the color to be this color, right? So I'll apply and then save. And now if I click on the vector, I can now change this color to whatever I want. Let's just say that color, press OK. And now that's going to change the material color to that color. So apply and then save. And now I can drag that material onto the ball, and now we just change that there. Now let me double click because obviously it's never going to be that easy. Whenever you're downloading things or applying textures to materials, you're most likely going to run into 4 different type of textures. You're going to run into the base color, which is the color. You're going to have a roughness texture. You're going to have a normal map, and you're going to have an ambient occlusion. Again, this just gets into a little bit more detail, but whenever you're looking for assets, make sure that you have at least 4 of those things. Base color and normal, you must absolutely want that in your objects, okay? The last thing that I'm going to do is just drag in some objects from the Fortnite folder right here to make our scene a little bit more interesting, because right now it doesn't really look that good. So right now we're in selection mode, which is what we want. I'm going to select the ball and just delete that. And then I'm going to go to my Fortnite folder right now. And what I'm going to do is search for Prefab. Now again, remember I told you that Epic Games people worked so hard for this. This is what I'm talking about. This folder includes a lot of pre-made assets we can just drag and drop into our scene. Now again, just a disclaimer, I can only imagine, I don't work for Epic Games, I don't work for Fortnite, but it is not this easy to create a level for Fortnite, all right? It's not, but the work they did on the back end, they made this process drag and drop, all right? So if you look at this barn right here and you look at the right side, you're gonna see that these are all small pieces put together, okay? I don't want people to think, oh my gosh, it's that easy to create Fortnite. No. This is a lot of people's hard work here that I truly, truly appreciate because it takes a lot of patience to do something like this, all right? So what these are called blueprints, okay? So these are pre-made blueprints that they pretty much hooked you up with, and my goodness, this is some pretty cool stuff right here. And again, you know, big thanks to people at Epic for doing this. So press W, and we can actually just bring that up or down, and the sky's the limit here. This honestly, this is the part where your imagination really just kicks in. You can create all kinds of stuff in here. There's so many that you can click and drop in here that is just ridiculous. We have a decayed mansion right here. It's going to take a second to load. Just be very careful because some of these are really dense and they are nanite enabled as well. Look at this thing. That's insane. If I go to lit, nanite, triangles, you're going to see how packed these things are. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff, man. I mean, that's your level right there. This is pretty much a playable level, okay? Move it right here. And honestly, I don't play Fortnite, but you might recognize this from Fortnite. I don't. So, all right, so let's delete that real quick. In addition to that, I'm going to go over Fab real quick, which is their marketplace. So again, if I go to the plus box or the place actor, I'm going to click on Fab. Now, this is going to be their content marketplace. This right here is insane because majority of the photo scan photorealistic assets that you're going to find here are Quixel Megascans asset, which is owned by Epic, which is free. All of these featured Megascans asset right here, people, are all free. If you want an Apple on your scene, sure, go ahead, add it to your project, or you can create an actual Unreal Engine project. These assets are being used by AAA studios and Hollywood movies and TV studios, and you all have access to this for free. This is one of the greatest pros of Unreal Engine is the Quixel Megascans assets. So play around with it if you want. You can download assets in here. Now, there are some paid ones in here, so be very careful when you're purchasing things. This one's $19.99. You know, it's going to say free on there if it's free, all right? And you do have a lot of free assets in there. So that's really cool. This is going to be constantly updated because obviously Unreal Engine actually has its own marketplace, but as far as I know, it's going to be all combined into one. So that's pretty exciting. It's pretty much going to be a one-stop shop. All right, so what I'm going to show you now is how to playtest your level, right? So to make this upload a little bit shorter, I'm going to leave this level pretty empty, all right, just the way it is. And to playtest it, all you have to do is click on Launch Session. And now this is going to open up an exe of Fortnite, an application for Fortnite. So just wait a couple of seconds. All right, so once that's done, you're going to see our game is loaded. And we have our barn right here looking all nice with lumen and nanite. I don't even have a pickaxe, but... And that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you all liked it and you all learned something new today. If you want me to keep going on making Unreal Editor for Fortnite tutorials, let me know in the comments below. And again, if you haven't done so, check out my Unreal Engine lighting course for beginners.